a lot of the times, like a lot of the family members get there and they stay like as often as they can for as long as they can. But a lot of the residents, like, because you can't go and like basically spend your whole like month in a retirement home to hang out with your grandparents. You have to like go to work and you have your own stuff outside of that. So a lot of the socialization stuff that we do is for mental health. Like we will get the residents and we'll just like, even for like food feeding purposes, just having them sit in a dining room with other people and having them get the opportunity to talk to other people about literally anything is like a big mental health thing, because isolation is a problem for any humans, as we have experienced. Um, so like we will organize like bingo or bridge or like Wii bowling games just so they can get out of their rooms and go talk to people. And with this whole thing going on, like the only people, like when I deliver food, a lot of the residents will say that like I'm like the only person that they've seen today, which is a huge problem if they live alone, like if their spouse has died or if they came here alone. Like just, yeah, it's a big mental health thing.
What so first, I guess, how did the residents react to the changes in the policies? Was there any pushback from them? Did they kind of understand what was happening, or?
I mean, for the most part, a lot of them understood what was happening and went along with all of the changes that we implemented. Because at first, we didn't completely shut down the dining room. We shut down about half the dining room because I think the government was recommending like no more than like 20 or 30 people be in one space at one time before it was total like stay at home kind of stuff. So we kept 15, 15-ish tables open. And the idea was that people who lived in not independent, but in like semi-independent living, assisted living, would be able to come to the dining room and get socialization and food and like whatever else they needed. But there were like just a handful of residents that in independent that didn't follow along with the rules. They would come up for food, and we were trying to keep them downstairs to uh, restrict traffic again, because like people in the courts, they live so close together and they interact on a daily basis. Like there's no way we can quarantine every single individual person from each other. So as long as they were still interacting and like coming into contact with each other, we may as well feed them all at once, you know? But they are like separated by a floor from independent living. So we were going to try and quarantine them separately, you know? But there were a few people who did not follow along with that whole new set of rules. So we had to shut the entire dining room down a couple days before the CDC suggested that we go into like complete quarantine mode.
So did the people that weren't going along with it, was it kind of like a stubbornness thing, like you're not going to tell me what I can do, or tell me about their attitude throughout all that?
Um, I mean, it depends person to person because again, in a retirement home, you have differing like levels of mental capability. So I think the majority of them was just being stubborn and saying like, I still want to go and do my normal routine, so I'm going to go up there because you know you can't stop me. But for a couple of them, it was like just change in their normal routine. And we did explain it to them like, hey, like we don't want you eating up here because of these reasons. So it would be really great if you could just not, like, we'll feed you today, but if you could like stop coming up here because we're trying to do all of this stuff. And they'd be like, oh yeah, sure, sure. But you know, then the next day they would forget because that was their daily routine and they were kind of stuck in it, that's acceptable. Like I totally understand that. But the people who like could comprehend what was going on and understand why we were making these changes and then continued to come and like not follow the rules they were putting literally everyone in danger knowingly. So
That's
that was
fun.
that. Yeah, always a fun time.
Um, how bad do you think the situation is in terms of like the isolation with the residents? Like, do you think people are faring mostly okay, or is that pretty rough right now?
I think it really depends again on the person because in assisted living they see the aides every day. They a lot of people usually Um, we deliver food door to door. So we'll knock on their door. We will see them. They'll see about like 3 or 4 teens and just be like, "Oh, hey," and make conversation with us. And then sometimes we will knock on the person directly across from them because we'll just like move down the hallway and get everyone down the hallway. Um, so they will have that interaction with the people directly across the hall. They'll be able to say like, "Oh, hello, how are you doing? Like, how has everything been?" So they will get little snippets of socialization. But like for the people who live alone or for the people who like aren't on the meal plan and who live in different areas of the building, socialization is a huge issue again because they're not getting food delivered. They don't see us. They can't talk to us. They are not in assisted living, so they don't see any of the nurses or the nurses' aides or the CNAs or anyone. They just have basically their TV and themselves, and that's it.
And is anything being done to address the isolation issues for the people that, like you just mentioned, are only seeing the TVs? Is there anything that can be done? Is it being discussed?
I don't know, because a lot of like resident enrichment stuff isn't in within our department. We don't talk to anyone in that kind of department. But I do know one resident told me that a couple days ago, like people went around with like a cart of like wine and cheese and crackers, and they were just like, "Hey, have a little snack," and like so they're doing like little stuff like that. But it's difficult to engage in social interaction when we're trying to cut down on the spread of like a very contagious disease. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
we're
Um,
doing like we're doing a lot of little things the best that we can to keep everyone like socially entertained, but it's hard.
of the residents that are mostly there,
Mm-hmm.
what are their thoughts on it?
I think there's like a general consensus. I don't know what they feel personally, but I feel like there's a general consensus that they understand that we coming into work or having to come into work are put in like a place of like vulnerability because a lot of the times when I knock on residents, like one of my favorite residents, they're a couple. Every time I stop in and see them, they're like, "Oh, like we really appreciate you coming in. We miss seeing you, but we understand why it is the way it is. Stay safe out there. We hope to see you again after all of this is over." So I don't know personal opinions, but I do know that they understand that this is uh, that it's like a kind of not dangerous, but it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
How are the residents keeping entertained right now? Are they just sitting around watching TV, knitting circles? What are they doing to keep busy?
Skype knitting circles, but no, they to keep busy. There's one resident who bakes like she'll make like little like chocolates and little fudge, and she'll leave them on a stool out for us, and like we know she doesn't have COVID, so we take it. Which is probably like a health and safety hazard, but she's a sweet old lady, so I don't think she's gonna drug us. Um, but a lot of baking, a lot of just watching TV. Again, it's a socialization issue. Like they can't. Um, there are varying levels of like athleticism. So some of them will go for walks outside. Some of them they'll like take their dog for a walk, or they'll go just walk around the block, or they will stay inside and knit and sew and like crochet and that kind of stuff. What else will they do? Some of them will Skype with family members. Some of the more technologically advanced ones will hop on Skype and talk to their family. But it really, again, it just depends person to person and like how technologically capable they are and how like physically capable they are.